Michelle Khare, welcome to Pretty Smart.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
We have a real life daredevil in the house today.
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
Do you consider yourself a daredevil?
Well, I think everyone has a little daredevil inside of them. And I think my YouTube channel and Challenge Accepted have just given me a vehicle to explore that every single day. But I think everyone has a daredevil inside.
How do I bring mine out? I don't know if I have one.
You definitely do already. I mean, you're putting yourself out there online. That's really, really scary. I mean, you're lead producing and hosting this amazing podcast. You're extremely connected in your industry. You're putting yourself out there every day. So there's so much more to every production and to every moment you put yourself out there.
It's super generous of you, but I'm gonna list off a few things and it's gonna make that look not so daredevilish, okay? At 32 years old, here are some of the things that you've already experienced and tried. Hostage negotiation with the FBI, trained with NASA, learned to play chess like a grandmaster champion, escaped a water tank in under 2 minutes while handcuffed like Houdini, put through a nuclear war simulation, joined a traveling circus, ghost hunted, trained and dieted to be a Victoria's Secret swimsuit model, an Olympic figure skater, a runway model, a boxer, Miss USA. You even went to Santa school.
Yes, we did.
And that's just a drop in the bucket. You've done around 50 challenges, yeah?
I think so at this point.
So these challenges and these risks that you're taking, they're at the expense of your health sometimes, they're at the expense of your well-being sometimes. What makes it worth the risk for you?
I guess I should preface that, like, with every challenge we take, it's safety is the number one concern with everyone, and I only put myself in situations I feel comfortable to try and pursue. But I think that something that really stood out to me a few years ago before I started Challenge Accepted was this idea that everything you want is on the other side of fear. And I found personally that the moments of the greatest growth have been when I have, confronted and gone to that other side a little bit. So honestly, Challenge Accepted is a way for me to continue growing and expanding myself, my understanding of the world, and hopefully share with a larger audience some of the learnings along the way.
Do you still get an adrenaline rush when you train for some of these?
Absolutely. I mean, someone has asked me even like, do you experience fear and do you get scared? Literally every time. It could be as simple as we joined a traveling circus, and that was terrifying, like flying off the trapeze, standing in the globe of death with a motorcycle flying around me. I definitely experience fear. I think it's a healthy thing to experience fear. It's an innate human response, and it is our body, communicating with us in a proper way. And I think it's important to have a good metric on that fear. If I was just doing things without fear at all, I think it would be dangerous and even reckless. But I think it's also about mitigating and understanding when it's rational and when it's not.
How do you determine when it's rational?
I think it's a vibe, honestly, but there's quantitative elements of like when I'm going in an underwater tank, handcuffed upside down to try and escape Harry Houdini's deadliest magic trick. Quantitatively, I know, okay, I've done the training. There's a full stunt team and safety team on standby in case anything goes wrong. Also, I have to qualitatively trust in myself, like I've done the steps that I need to do before attempting something like this. So it's a relationship with my body, I guess.
The trust in yourself is what's really interesting to me personally. I don't know if maybe it's because it's something I've struggled with, but do you feel that muscle get stronger each time, or is that something that you've always had?
I think that confronting fear is absolutely a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it becomes to assess that fear, what's rational, what's not. And I also think it's important to look at the historical data. How many times have you gone out on a limb and it's actually gone better than you thought it would? Probably more than you would think day to day, but if you sat down and wrote down every time you've gone out on a limb or like pushed yourself to try something different, I would venture to say that, maybe you were surprised at some of the positive results, and you can lean on that data to inform future risks and choices and endeavors you yourself pursue.
Okay, what challenge has been the hardest on your mind, and which one has been the hardest on your body?
I think mentally the most difficult challenge for me was the chess challenge, for sure. Absolutely. That challenge was exceptionally challenging for me because I thought that it would take me 1 month to hit my goal, and it took, I think, 8 to 10 months at the end of the challenge of just playing chess every single day and memorizing all of the patterns and techniques and working with a coach. And it was a new experience for me, and I really, really enjoyed everything I learned from it. I think physically, a challenge I'm really excited about that hasn't come out yet was I finished a challenge earlier this year where I tried to get a black belt in Taekwondo in only 90 days.
What?
Yes.
It takes people 90 years to do that.
Yeah. Typically it takes 3 to 5 years to get a black belt in Taekwondo on like an average path when someone's like going a couple times after school or after work. But we kind of asked the question, what would happen if we just went every single day for multiple hours a day and kind of condensed everything. So we finished the training period. I'm actually still doing Taekwondo because I loved it so much. But that was very physically taxing because it was a different type of movement with my body that I wasn't used to. And I really, really enjoy it though. I love martial arts.
So the fact that you're continuing to do Taekwondo is interesting to me because I read that you took up cycling just for fun, kind of, and then you decided to go pro.
I probably will not be becoming a professional martial artist, but yeah, the cycling journey was definitely interesting and informed a lot of the daily patterns I bring to Challenge Accepted, I suppose.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah.
What do you mean it brings more to the daily patterns?
So I started cycling because I came to Los Angeles for an internship, and I didn't have any friends in LA, but I saw a lot of people riding bikes here. It's a very outdoorsy city. For me, it was a social opportunity. And I really just fell in love with it. And instead of like making lots of friends or like developing a social life, I just kept riding my bike with this group of people who were very, very good. And when I went back to college after finishing the internship, I joined the collegiate team and went to nationals. And yeah, the first year after college, I was working as a producer and then also on the pro team.
So a few years ago, I had a boyfriend break up with me and I was super heartbroken. And when I don't know what to do with myself or I feel sad, I go to athletics because I know it's like the one thing that will help. I decided to train for a triathlon, and I'd never biked before. And I joined one of these bike clubs in West Hollywood. And on Sundays, it would be like me and a bunch of guys.
Yes!
Did you have that?
It's literally that. It was me and a bunch of guys. I don't know how we didn't cross paths in that because there are so few of us, I feel like, compared to the number of men in the sport on a recreational level. Well, that's awesome. I love that you turned heartbreak into something powerful for yourself. That's amazing.
Nothing helped. I was still heartbroken, but I'm waiting for the bike clothes to catch up fashion-wise because they have this brand called Rafa, but it's so expensive.
The designer.
And it's like, the bike clothes are not made for women.
No, they're not.
They need to catch up.
Yeah, they really do.
Okay, so these productions that you put together, I heard you were inspired by documentaries, which makes a lot of sense because I'm watching how you film these, and it's docu-style when you're filming yourself, but when you're filming your trainers or other people, it's filmed really beautifully. And so the way you chop it up is so interesting. I heard you spend anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 per challenge. Is that a correct number?
Well, I guess it's changed. It's sort of like particular to whatever we're doing. Okay. But yeah, I mean, the state of YouTube nowadays is people are making bigger productions, and single point creators are turning into teams of people and production companies. And that's how we run our company, at least.
I love when you say our company because I've heard you talk a lot about your team. I can tell it's really important to you.
Yes, yes.
And you won a Streamy Award in 2023. It was Show of the Year, right?
Yeah, it was.
And I loved watching your speech. I think at the very end of it, you said, "We're just getting started."
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
It was really special to win Show of the Year at the Streamies, and our whole team was there that night, which was so, so cool. And also, I think it's the beginning of our journey. For me, it was like we were not expecting to win something like that. And for us, it was like, okay, it's time to level up. That chapter has closed, let's start writing the next one. And I don't think I necessarily meant, okay, now all the videos are gonna be 10 times as big or more expensive or crazier or scarier or anything like that. But I am excited about the possibility of a long-term career doing. It was really exciting for our team to feel this is just the beginning.
When you say that, I can't help but think what that means in terms of like more traditional distributors, because I've heard you've turned down some offers from traditional.
Well, like we've had meetings with various companies and whatnot, and I think a lot of YouTubers are getting interest in offers, and that's so exciting. But at the end of the day, for me, it's really about the opportunity and what are we going to be able to gain from this that we wouldn't already on our own YouTube channel. And traditional Hollywood is sometimes really unpredictable. You know, you can have an amazing show, do really well and be really well received by audiences, and it gets canceled for XYZ reason. And just tangibly, as someone who is looking to have a long-term career in this, I like having security and I like having control over what we create. And obviously that said, I think there's so much opportunity for collaboration. Like I would love to do something, bigger, or I would love to collaborate with a studio. I think that'd be so cool. But I think when the right opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. Have there been any that have felt enticing?
I guess I did this, but I loved hosting Karma on HBO. That was one of my favorite summers, and getting to work with one of my hosting idols, JD Roth, who created the show, was so fantastic. It was, a kids reality competition show, and I loved everything that I learned from that experience, getting to work on a big set with hundreds of people on the crew. Also getting to focus in on just hosting was really nice as well. We're really excited about what we're doing on the YouTube channel, and especially because, with Nielsen ratings showing that YouTube is the most watched platform on television, and that includes like all the major streamers. That's really exciting to me to know that a lot of our viewers are sitting back, leaning back and enjoying on the biggest screen in the house. Like that's so cool,
How long do you prep for each challenge?
Oh my gosh. So our production process, it depends on the challenge, but I would say...
Yeah, walk me through actually, I'm so curious.
Okay, so let's take the Houdini project. That was several months of prep. We were interviewing magicians, we were interviewing engineers to build the box that could hold all the weight of that water, and build the lid that would hold my feet. And it took us several months to find the right people to work with. Then once we found the right people, I trained for 6 weeks in the pool doing breath holds every day. Then we have a few days of shooting at the end for the final challenge and rehearsals. And then from there, it's like 2 months of edits, then color, sound, and then we upload. So it's a long runway for a big project. But all things considered, our team moves very fast. And I love that. I love being able to pursue, kind of whatever we want and whatever interests us. It's really exciting.
Do you know the ad for the most interesting man in the world, the Dos Equis guy?
Yes.
I feel like you're the most interesting woman in the world. Like, who has experiences and hobbies under their belt? It's unbelievable.
Well, I'm like a Jill of all trades, I suppose. But yeah, I'm definitely not a master of one. But I love learning, and I love trying new things. And I'm a person who's always kind of like dabbled around in various things. So I feel like I'm kind of getting away with try things for a little bit and then move on to the next. So it's really fun.
How do you feel about that? Like I'm curious about the Jill of all trades, master of none feeling.
Well, I guess, maybe our team has really mastered in many ways, obviously always so much to learn, but we've gotten very good at long form video production online. And I'm very proud of our team and the way that we've grown, and the incredible unique skill sets that everybody brings to the table. So I think that we're definitely in the masterful side of that. But also I love being surprised by the challenges. Someone asked me, do you ever go into a challenge expecting it to be easy? Mm-hmm. And I think in the beginning, maybe I thought, okay, this will be an easier one than the other. And then I learned very quickly, when you meet with people who are at the top of their game in anything, and I mean anything, even clowning, you will be challenged, and, and it will push you in a new way you weren't expecting before. I just really love learning from other people and broadening my understanding of the world, and I love being surprised.
Is there sort of a niche community you were most surprised by?
Honestly, my eyes were pretty open doing the clowning episode, because you hear clown, you think birthday party clown with a red nose, like just, I think it's very silly. But the clowning troupe we worked with was a professional clowning troupe, and they are very passionate about the work that they do, and clowning to them can be funny, but can also be very emotional and very sad and very heart-wrenching. And to see my expectation of what the art form was be completely changed by participating in this clowning boot camp workshop, it's very humbling.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely have a different perspective on entering a space I'm not familiar with, and having more of an open heart towards everyone.
I kind of need to know who raised this daredevil. I was reading about your family.
Oh my God.
Your father is a doctor. Your mother studied biology. By all accounts, you were a really smart, high achiever, and your parents assumed you would be a doctor or a lawyer, or maybe even work in finance. What do they think about what you're doing?
My parents were definitely the people, like my mom was like, I don't think you should do this after school sport because it's too dangerous. I don't really know where exactly it came from, but I do think my family is daring in other ways. My dad is he immigrated here from India, and learned a totally new language. And other people in my family have experienced that bravery in other ways too. And so just growing up with that mentality of like every moment matters, and I need to make the most of every moment I have, and the privilege I'm afforded by their sacrifice has made me very aware of, like, even when I started my YouTube channel, I've got to go all in. Now, I think they really like it. They have a lot of fun watching the videos, and I love sharing the work with my family.
Does your mother ever call you and say, like, please do not do this one?
They were pretty nervous about the Houdini one. My sister came to watch it live, and my dad called her when she was driving over, like, tell me everything's okay when she gets out or whatever. But that one was, went okay. So
that one made me nervous too. Like the Victoria's Secret swimsuit model one, I'm like, okay, this is hard on your mental health and physical well-being, but I'm not nervous for your safety. You know?
Yeah.
The Houdini one, I'm like holding my breath watching you. So you went to Dartmouth and you studied digital media and technology, but did you have sort of these aspirations of being in entertainment at that point?
Of course. I grew up, watching my favorite TV shows and seeing how, I thought it looked really fun to be a part of all of that. And like I did theater growing up and loved being a part of telling stories. I just wasn't sure when I graduated if it was realistic for me, honestly. I mean, you hear the statistics of how many people try and fail, and it's very sobering and also important to keep in mind. So when I came out to LA, I came on another job to be a producer, and kind of was trying to develop that other side while I had a day job, I suppose. But I'm really glad with how it turned out, and I also feel extremely lucky knowing all of those things.
What was your goal back then? Was it acting?
My goal was just to be a part of the world and of entertainment, honestly. And I love performing, love hosting, love acting. But I was just like, any way I could be on a set, I'm happy and excited to do it.
How did your YouTube channel come about then?
So my YouTube channel came about because I was producing for another YouTube channel, and I kind of got to this point where I was like, you know what, maybe I could do this myself. I just sort of got to this point, and I, did a lot of prep. I did a lot of Tim Ferriss fear setting, and I quit my job and decided to go all in on my YouTube channel, which was, a big jump. I think I didn't even tell my family I'd quit until I was like, oh, by the way, I'm not working there anymore, and I'm doing this other thing. Like I wanted the choice to be mine, and ultimately the failure to be mine if that was the path that was going to go down. But I needed to go in and put in the 2 weeks and make that my own choice. So that's what I did.
What's Tim Ferriss' fear setting?
Oh my God. Okay. So in Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he has this incredible exercise called fear setting, where you write down if there's something you're considering doing. So in my case, I want to start a YouTube channel and quit my job. You write down every single thing that you think could go wrong. I'm gonna, flop and totally embarrass myself. I am going to spend all of my savings and have to run back to, find another job. I'm going to embarrass myself in front of my friends and family on social media. I'm gonna, make work that's really bad and really cringe. So you write everything that makes you nervous about that choice out. And then in the next column, you write, if this happens, tangibly what you would actually do to solve it. So the first one is, I spend all my savings, I have to get a new job, okay? Well, I would you literally write, okay, I would make a post on LinkedIn, I would reach out to these contacts, I would try to get a job at these other companies, and then in the third column, you write what you can do to prevent that now. So that means okay, before I quit my job, I'm gonna update my LinkedIn, I'm gonna make sure my resume is ready so that if there's a crisis, those materials are already ready to go.
Whoa, this
Isn't
is
that
very
cool?
practical, great.
Extremely practical. I love it because when you finish that, you're like, oh, I have a game plan for if everything goes wrong.
Did anything end up going wrong?
Oh, of course. I mean, yeah, of course things go wrong.
What went wrong?
So in many ways, I think on paper, a lot of things went right. I was really fortunate that I had an education and understanding of how to make things perform well on YouTube from my prior job. So I started off by doing that, and the channel was growing pretty quickly in the beginning, which is a huge blessing. But behind the scenes, I was learning how to do taxes and manage a team of people. When you're doing something even like this podcast, you have people helping out, setting up the cameras and everything, and learning how to give feedback, both positive and negative, managing others, negotiating pay with people that are close to you, sometimes even your friends who are helping out, or navigating all of that was a huge learning curve for me, and I think for any first-time business owner. And especially to do it, I think at that time I was 24, and most of my colleagues were not entrepreneurs. They were people with full-time jobs or freelancers with steady work. And so navigating being a CEO by myself at that age was very taxing at times. And, again, just like in the challenges, I had to move towards fear. It's okay, I'm gonna go to that section of Barnes & Noble I've avoided my whole life and pick up a finance book and management book and learn how to do this myself. Yeah. And I was honestly pretty avoidant to it in the beginning, and I think a lot of people are of I had always wanted, I'm gonna do my YouTube channel, is just gonna be me. But you get to a point where it's no, you need to have, you plateau if you don't have other people around you and challenging you. Those were really important lessons for me because I'm really excited and grateful for that business education, that in real life crash course I was given. And it's something I'm really passionate about for other up and coming young, especially female content creators, to understand and to really know who's your accountant? Are you filing quarterly or annually? What type of retirement account do you have? How are you investing it? Those are the things that I think a lot of people find out by themselves in private, and honestly covered in a lot of shame because we're sort of expected to just adult out of nowhere. And that's education I'm really passionate about other young women having.
I'm pretty impressed that you just went to Barnes & Noble's and figured it out.
Well, I don't know, way more than just Barnes & Noble's. I mean, yeah. It was trial and error, saying the wrong thing, saying the right thing, reaching out and asking for mentorship from other people.
Yeah.
And books and YouTube videos, and even going to events to learn about these things.
I can tell that independence is really important to you. You talk a lot about keeping your YouTube channel the way that you envision it. I'm curious about the significance of that for you.
I think it's important for people who are doing something creative to have ownership of the idea and what they're creating. And I also think it's important when you have a really strong vision and North Star goal to really follow that heart center. So I really like YouTube for that reason, and you know, surrounding myself with people who challenge me but are still aligned with the same vision, I think is important too.
Does your audience tell you what they want to see next? You ever,
Yeah.
what's that relationship like?
I love our relationship with our audience. They're really cool people and like really smart and intelligent. So people suggest things, but also we'll also talk about, you know, what do we want to make next and how can we fit that in the scope of the theme of the channel. Like something we're trying now is a bit of a new format, which is a simulation format. So we just did an episode where it was called I Tried a Nuclear War Simulation. Now that sort of came about because it's an election year and there's a very big job that will be decided very soon, the job of the president. So I thought, you know, how could we do projects surrounding what it's actually like to be the president? Well, the president is the one person who has the ability to push the button to send nukes. That's crazy. It's one person, and that's who we're voting for this year.
And you put it that way.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we all obviously hope we're never in that situation. So instead of doing a full like challenge accepted classic where I, you know, trained to be the president and then become the president for a day, which was actually like, you know, not really possible, we did ask. So we kind of crafted our own simulation, just asking the question, could I survive the most difficult day in office, which would be if that decision had to be made. So we worked with a Harvard professor to design a simulation with a bunch of actors who all knew what was going on except for me. And then, you know, I basically walk in the room and they're like, hey, nuclear missiles are incoming, what do you do? And they take me through a tree branch simulation where every decision I make changes how the actors in the room behave with me.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we did that and I was so happy with how the video turned out. And it was a wonderful proof of concept that sometimes limitations challenge us to think creatively, because like we weren't allowed to go to the White House for a day, but how could we create something relevant and important within the constraints of a single room? And so now we're actually like experimenting with, okay, what other like high stakes simulations could we do where maybe I'm not necessarily training, but just thrown in to the deep end.
It's so funny to me in your videos when you talk about having these contacts from past videos. So like one of the ones that I watched, you were like, okay, I needed to call somebody from the FBI from a video a few years ago. You have the most eclectic group of contacts. I can't even imagine what your Rolodex or email list is like.
Yeah, FBI, Secret Service, all.
Talk to me about not being scared of getting a no, because I've been thinking about something called rejection therapy a lot lately.
Okay.
And it's actually popular on TikTok. But people are doing these challenges where for 30 days, they are asking for something that they think is outlandish or ridiculous or makes them nervous that they'd get a no by asking. And the results are pretty unbelievable because most people are getting lots of yeses. And so their idea of asking and their fear of rejection totally changes. You seem like you don't have that fear.
Of course I do. But you know, when you email the FBI, we're probably not even gonna get a response from this. And the fact that someone actually responded and called is crazy. I love that challenge. I think everybody should do that because I do believe you never, like literally in many cases, what's the worst that can happen? They say no.
Right.
You move on to the next, and then it's about asking the question, how am I letting the thought of no prevent me from being my highest self? And I'm so fortunate that somebody responded to these crazy emails, and I am often very surprised with how many people actually open their email.
So like when you first contacted the FBI, what did you do? Where did you even start?
You know, I have to shout out our producer at the time, Iris. She just picked up the phone and called a number on like FBI.gov or something. Again, I was like, you're calling the FBI? Okay, whatever. Like I was doing something else. And she gets off the phone. She's like, okay, I got an email. And of course I was like, okay, sure, go ahead, send them an email. We'll see what happens. Probably nothing. And it just kept going and going and going. And of course, you know, that process of getting approval with the FBI and the Secret Service and some of the extremely high security people we've collaborated with takes a long time, months. We're talking months of this back and forth. And I think it's also on you as an individual when you ask for something big to have everything ready to go for when they say yes. Because I think a lot of people aren't prepared for that moment. What if they do say yes? Do you have everything that you need for whatever you're asking for? So it's a big learning process.
I think about that a lot because people, especially in my industry, will be like, I want to interview Oprah, I want to interview Michael Jordan. And it's like, if you saw them at a shoe store, what are you going to say? Like, are you ready?
Yeah.
What are you going to ask?
That's a really good point.
I do think you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
I love that. I totally agree.
Yeah. Has there been a no that has hurt you at all?
I really am often surprised at how many people say yes, or they say no, but they like what you're doing. And that's cool. Like sometimes hearing from someone saying like, hey, I can't do this, but keep going. Like that is still really cool. Like I emailed Mark Cuban about a video once, and he just responded saying like, thanks, but I don't have time. That's crazy. He responded. He read the email. Like that's so cool. And I like that more than sitting to the void and getting nothing back.
Yeah, I appreciate a response, even if it's a no. I want to talk about your work ethic.
Okay.
So you used to work at BuzzFeed, and your schedule during that time was pretty rigorous. You would wake up at 5 a.m. every day to train. You would compete every weekend for cycling. All the while, like BuzzFeed, people don't even realize what an intense schedule that is, because we used to call it, I worked at Clever TV under Defy Media, and we would call it like the BuzzFeed model. You guys would just like throw so many videos at the wall and see what sticks and then make whichever ones stick. But that takes hours of writing, directing, casting, editing, all of the things. What made it feel worth it to you?
What made it worth it at the time was seeing things working and paying off, whether it's, you know, my video performed really well or I'm happy with my race result. But I'm gonna be honest, like I got to a point where it was unsustainable, and I had to make a really tough choice to discontinue cycling in the way I was, at least. You know, I made the choice like, okay, I'm each of them, it was like a Hannah Montana situation, I guess, but like one of them is preventing me from being the best I can in the other. I felt, at least through the work I was doing making online content, that I could have a bigger impact that way by doing that. So that choice was really, really hard, but I'm happy now because I feel like I've kind of come full circle, and now with Challenge Accepted, I'm able to be I'm going to put in big quotes, professional athlete, kind of on my own terms. And that's really cool, especially when...
Oh, I love that, Michelle.
Yeah, especially because there are so few opportunities for female athletes in general, unless you're in a very specific sport or, you know, you're literally the top of the top. And so I love being able to still be an athlete and really push myself and enjoy the physical component of things, and also get to be a producer and lean into that artistic and business side of myself too.
I heard that it was the fitness that you got from cycling that eventually became Challenge Accepted.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of shows about people trying things, or like celebrities trying something for a day. And those work because the talent is extremely comedically inclined, or like they have very interesting stories. And I was like, what is my own unique take on this? Well, I have this physical background. And what would happen if I did a version of that, but I committed for an extended period of time to really see how far an amateur can go under professional coaching. So Challenge Accepted was honestly kind of out of necessity of what is the one thing I feel that I am uniquely positioned to do. Yeah. And that blend of reality doc and athlete.
I love the idea that each of your videos starts almost with a question. It's what would happen if?
Sure, yeah.
You know, like what would happen if I committed to X, Y, and Z? What would happen if I made the most of X, Y, and Z? You're really pushing yourself to the limit. When I was training for the triathlon, my dad, both of my parents had done one. And so I was calling my dad being like, what do you think getting advice. And he taught me about bonking. Have you heard of that?
Yes, bonking.
So it's like when your body or mind kind of just gives out, you bonk.
Yeah.
And there's things you can do, like things you can eat to make sure that you try and not bonk. But what I learned from that was it was actually so much more mental for me than it was physical. So it's not that my body was giving out, it was that my mind was giving out.
Wow.
Have you felt that at all with these challenges? Like what have they taught you about what's possible for yourself?
Well, I think just tangibly bonking, typically in the context of cycling or a triathlon is, as a result of, when you haven't been hydrating or eating enough throughout the course of your ride and it sort of sneaks up on you, that you need rest or fuel. So I think a big part of Challenge Accepted has also been self-mitigating those rest periods. So I will do, a long training period like Taekwondo, and then I'll probably take a few months of just enjoying life and exercising when I feel comfortable. And then, the next big challenge will kind of find its way. Almost just like an athlete in season versus off season, we kind of naturally have structured things that way.
And you don't get antsy during downtime.
Of course I do. Of course I do. I'm already sitting here thinking, what's the next thing? I want to get into it. Even if we're filming something else, I'm like, I want a long-term thing I can really sink my teeth into, because those are the ones I'm really, really passionate about. But I think the time period between longer term training is important too, because sometimes I don't realize how much I need it until I'm several weeks in, and that collective fatigue is something, it catches up to you. Just like bonking on your bike when you're 70 miles in on the triathlon.
Okay, is there a moment where you've really felt like a daredevil?
I think the moment I felt most like a daredevil was doing the Houdini project. And the moment when I took my last breath before going underwater with the handcuffs on. Because my idols are David Blaine, Evel Knievel, even Jeff Probst. Probst doesn't fit in there, I think he does, because those are all people, you say their name and there's no one else in their category. David Blaine is one of one, Evel Knievel is one of one, and Jeff Probst and the legacy he's created, not only creating Survivor, but hosting it and producing everything behind the scenes is one of one to me.
Michelle, I'm so obsessed with Jeff Probst.
Really?
Too. Yes. I met him at a Halloween party one time.
So you got to meet Jeff?
He might reply to you. He did not reply to me. This is such a funny story.
Oh my God.
I go to, this was years ago, so it was before Elon Musk got kind of toxic, but I was at Elon Musk's Halloween party.
This is, everything you're saying is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Okay, I'm processing. You're at Elon Musk's home for Halloween.
Yes.
With Jeff Probst.
Jeff Probst is there. So I walk in with two of my friends, and you have to give your phone at the front, okay? Which I'm scared about. So I go in, I'm dressed like Ariana Grande. And I walk in and there's mermaids in the fountain and drinks. It was in his pool house, I think. He didn't want people in his real house. And he's wearing chaps, like Elon is, leather chaps. And my friend Brooke is wild. She's a wild person. And she goes right up to Elon and she goes, I love your nipples, because he's shirtless. I look at her and I'm like, what are you saying? And he's like, thanks. And he leaves and goes to the bathroom.
Oh my God.
There's so many celebrities there, okay?
Yeah.
I turn to my right and Jeff Probst is standing there. And if you are a host, which you are, right? You love Jeff Probst because even if you're not a Survivor fan, you can appreciate, like you said, the legacy and what he's created. He's such a huge part of that production behind the scenes, the writing, the production, all of it. I go up to him, I'm like, Jeff, I'm such a huge fan of yours. He's like, me? He's so confused. I don't think people go up to him a lot.
Are you kidding? He's Jeff!
Annie had the Jeff Probst talk show. So I said, I know this is wild. Could I email you? And he's like, sure. He was so nice. Gave me his email. He never replied. But even that he was kind in person, I was so happy. Took what I can get.
That is so cool. What a memory.
It's a good memory.
That's amazing.
You were talking about your mentors.
Oh yeah.
Because I was saying
idols. So I felt most like a daredevil doing the Houdini thing because, you know, it was definitely inspired by David Blaine and Evel Knievel. It's a very classic daredevil experience, and I was really, really happy with how the project turned out as a whole too.
it was unbelievable to watch, Michelle.
Thank you.
I couldn't believe you were doing it. Because when people do those things on network television, there are so many safety precautions. Like, it's such a huge production, and you're doing this with your team. Unbelievable. Is there anything you've ever said no to? Do you have boundaries with these challenges?
Of course, definitely. I think everyone needs to have boundaries of some kind.
What have you said no to?
What have I said no to? You know, saying no to challenges, or like when brands or companies come to us and say, hey, we have an idea for a big challenge. A lot of times the no is when they miss the mark on what the show is about, in the sense of something I really want to make sure with every episode we create is that it's a net positive for the world, and that it's respectful of the community that we go into, and requires at times, for one single YouTube video, I'm going to spend 3 months of my life living and breathing with this community of people. And I think a lot of times when we say no is when people want us to speed up that process, or suggest doing it in a way that we feel is not appropriate or respectful to the community. Because I think what makes Challenge Accepted special is we're willing to sit and sink our teeth into something.
You really immerse yourself.
As much as we possibly can, and sometimes we're only given a little bit of access into something, and we'll take what we can. But anytime we can, I'd like to really marinate on whatever the subject is.
There's this Victoria's Secret swimsuit challenge that I want to ask you about. Okay. So you train for 5 weeks.
Yes.
And like you just said, you really immerse yourself. And I think that's part of what separates you from people that are doing something similar on like a network show. They maybe do this for 4 or 5 days. You go deep in, and at one point, the trainer takes your initial measurements, and he puts a level tool on your butt, okay? And then he talks about the unevenness of your butt. How did you feel?
I don't remember. It was so long ago at this point. And I had a good relationship with the trainer before, so I felt comfortable with him telling me whatever I needed to hear.
Right, and it's part of it. Like, that's part of immersing yourself. But I'm kind of wondering, like, do you ever wake up and think, why on earth did I agree to this?
Of course. I mean, you look at some of the back catalog or first videos you've ever made, and you're like, oh my God, they're online, but like they don't reflect the me I am today. But I think I heard someone say once that, like, if you're not cringing at your old work, then you're not evolving.
Oh, do you have something that you tell yourself when you need to be brave?
Yeah. I don't. But when I need to be brave, what I do is I list all the reasons why, like over and over in my head, all the reasons why I can succeed at whatever I'm about to do. I can succeed at this because I've done the training. I have met with the right people. I have rested appropriately. I have researched. I have studied, and leaning on those things, even if you don't feel solid about them. Like that, I think, like, is the mantra I tell myself before I'm about to do something crazy.
It's so interesting that this is your line of work, because your mind, I can tell, works so analytically, and you're so pragmatic. And then all of a sudden, all of that goes out the window, and you like jump from an airplane.
Yes, exactly. I think that's why it's important. I like, the challenges literally do challenge me. If they didn't, it wouldn't be good TV. It wouldn't be interesting to watch. And unfortunately for me, it means I have to look inward constantly. But I think it's good for me, and I hope it's good for other people watching too.
It's interesting to me when usually there's like a hero's journey you take us on, and at some point you cry during the filming of these challenges, and you show us those very vulnerable moments. Is there ever a hesitancy to show that? Is that hard?
I think so, of course. And I think that there's a choice when there's a strong emotional reaction or a very hard day doing whatever this is. And the choice is to cut it out of the edit or allow people to see what it really is. I think that traditional presentations of a lot of these communities we explore, or even seeing other people try them, they cut a lot of that out, but that's not the reality of the experience. It's not my reality. I like being honest in the storytelling, and I am an emotional person, and I'm a person with feelings. So to me, including those moments appropriately, I think is important to show the reality of the stress of the situation that I put myself in.
To me, there's like a connection in that stress. There's like a mind-body connection. It feels like even though you're putting your body usually through some type of challenge, there's like a lesson that comes through. The one with the hostage negotiation, I felt like it was about finding your true voice. Does that resonate at all, or what came up for you with that one?
Absolutely, and our most recent episode about learning how to negotiate for a hostage with the FBI was very eye-opening to me, because it taught me a lot about having empathy for everyone that you deal with, and even empathy in their case with some of the most difficult subjects or perpetrators, victims, and situations, and having to safely find a way through to get everyone out alive. So it really challenged me in my communication. It challenged me in that empathy. Can you have empathy for someone who you're on the phone with who has hostages held in a bank, and having to, talk them through to help them make the right choice to release them, is when you want to do the opposite, right?
Have you used any of those communication tools in your relationship?
Of course. There's the crossover between therapy and hostage negotiation is actually a very strong Venn diagram.
Really?
Yeah, because it's so much about naming the emotions, reflecting back to people. So absolutely.
I've heard you say in other interviews that it's really important for you to highlight the people in the communities and the everyday stories through these videos. The firefighter, a 911 operator, a ballerina. Why is that so close to your heart?
It's important to me because I don't feel like it's covered often in traditional media. I feel that a lot of shows will skim over the day-to-day, the benign, whatever it may be, unless it has an element of glitz to it, or you can tell when a story has been bent by a producer to artificially add glitz to it. I think we have the opportunity to meet with such cool individuals. Why not share their stories as they are, and share them in the way that they want to be seen? And also just from, that tangible perspective of, if everybody is covering this story one way, we should cover it in a different way. We don't want to just copy and paste what other shows have done. We want to be additive to the media landscape, because that's what people expect from Challenge Accepted.
I so feel you. I love that aspect of what you're doing too.
Thank you.
Okay, you had your wedding as part of your series.
Yeah.
The proposal, the wedding planning, the dress shopping, which is totally different for you than a usual challenge. You married Garrett, who's your creative director. How did you guys decide you wanted to showcase this?
Well, honestly, we thought it would just be really fun to document, in the sense of we have this to look back on years in the future. Also, it was really, really fun to film with our family. I will also say there's a lot that's not in any of the videos that's just for us, which is really wonderful to have as well. But I'm also going to be totally real with you. We were able to use work hours to go do our wedding planning. We were able to invest more in this really fun part of our lives because we made it a part of the channel.
What advice would you give somebody who wants to push their limits but is scared or has that fear?
I would definitely recommend doing the Tim Ferriss fear setting exercise and really get granular on why is this thing making you scared, and if that fear comes true, how would you respond and change course? I just think it's a really powerful thing to fully confront the fear, because a lot of us say, "Oh, I'm scared of that," and then in the conversation there. Oftentimes when you dig a lot deeper, you can learn very specifically what is scary to you and maybe remove that one small pebble that allows you to pursue something with your full chest, you know?
Is there a fear you still haven't conquered yet, despite all the wild challenges that you've accepted?
So many, of course. I'm still very scared of heights. I'm scared of loved ones dying. I'm scared of the YouTube channel like flopping out of nowhere. I think that's the thing about fear is you always have that fear. It's just how loud is it and how much can you turn the volume down?
What's one thing every woman should try once?
The first thing that came to my heart was opening a retirement account.
That's great.
Literally every woman needs to do that.
Nice. What's the most unexpected lesson that you've learned through your challenges?
Some of the things that look the scariest aren't.
Favorite YouTuber or channel that you follow?
Leo Abram, Colin and Samir, Defunct Land, Ryan Trahan, Mark Rober.
If you met Mindy Kaling in real life and you could ask her one question, what would it be?
I would ask her if I could just shadow her on set for one day at Video Village, just watching what she does.
Okay, grab the question everything
Okay.
card game, please. Pick a card, whichever one calls you.
All right. What's your favorite scent? I actually really like mint.
What's the smartest decision you've ever made?
Making my YouTube channel and starting Challenge Accepted, I think.
All the daredevil shows I've seen have been men.
I think it's like many things, a very male-dominated space, but I think there are a lot of really amazing women doing amazing things on YouTube.
So cool. Michelle, thank you.